All right, match 5. We are on the draw. 4 lands is way more than we want in our opening hand. That's why the deck plays so few lands. I think we play 17. But I'm going to keep off the power of Fairy Miscreant into Ninja the Deep Hours. It's pretty good against a fair number of decks. All right, we're playing against Goblins, apparently. Well, this is not going to be good against Goblins, probably. Just because a very few number of creatures plus a little bit of removal from our opponent means they get to run over us. Sparksmith. This is a very hard card to deal with. It's repeatable removal, X damage to target creature, and X to you, where X is the number of goblins on the battlefield. So I could trade off here to try to make the Sparksmith work. I could take the damage, attack ninjutsu into ninja, and just let the ninja die to the Sparksmith. What I really need to do is be able to find and play a Vapor Snag and a counterspell to get this off the table, because I really just can't beat it. If you put your opponent under enough pressure and they lose a bunch of life and then they can't Sparksmith, that's one thing. But as it is now, I can't do that. This is really awkward. I think I'm going to let them keep that, and I'm going to pass. Ooh, Vapor Snag. Vapor Snag is good. It's not great, but it's good. It's a start. Ponder. Well, there's the counterspell. So as bad as this is, I think I need to keep it all. Okay. I guess I'll attack. So now I can Vapor Snag the Sparksmith on end step, or whenever they tap out of 2 mana, and then I can counterspell it on the way back down. And hope they don't have another one. It is probable at that point that I'll just lose to the board, but I have to get rid of the Sparksmith. Alright, so that goes away. For now, at least. And I get to pass. Take 2 damage. Hopefully they'll try for the Sparksmith right now. If they wait, then I kind of have to save the counterspell, which is obviously pretty bad, because then I have to leave up counterspell every single turn until they play it. I suppose I can just count on drawing another counterspell, or Force Spike, because I can't really let this resolve either. Because they will just run me over. That's what Goblins does best, is run people over. They decide not to attack, which was probably a misclick and not a deliberate action on their part. I could play a ninja, or I could plan on gushing on their turn to try to find a counterspell. I suppose I'll play ninja at this point and hope to draw another Vapor Snag if they try to resolve Sparksmith again. There's nothing really that I can do in the face of Sparksmith. It's a very good card. It's kind of unfortunate that we just basically lose to it, but the only interaction we have for resolved creatures in their deck is Vapor Snag, which we only run 4 of, and even then they can cast it again. So as we just did once, but are not going to probably be able to do twice, you have to Vapor Snag and counter something to deal with it forever. The idea is with this deck is that you don't need to deal with threats because you're so aggressive. You just tempo them out. You attack a bunch early, and then you bounce like maybe one thing and counter like maybe one thing, and then you win. But when the other deck is faster, and you can't count on tempo to save you, then that doesn't work as well. Preordains for days. Delver's Secrets is pretty bad here, but I guess it's good enough. It forces them to use Sparksmith and take some damage. Ponder, find another 1-drop creature, hopefully. Alright. I could play a Spire Golem next turn, and that might buy me some time. I have no good options here. I just have options that are slightly less bad than other ones. So right now my plan is to trade off the Delvers and maybe lose one of them to a Smartsmith. Play a Golem, and maybe they don't have 4 Goblins on the table to be able to Sparksmith that away, but they probably will. And then I don't know from there. Alright, they get rid of both of our creatures, which means we can't even block to force them to use a Goblin Sledder. And there's a War Marshal, which means that our Spire Golem is going to die. And another Moderator. Yeah, we're getting run over here. I suppose we will play this and gush and see if we can draw something. Even if we draw 2 more 1-drop creatures, like 2 Fairy Miscreants, and get to draw a card, we're still just very far behind. See if our opponent wants to show us another card, not that they need to. Pretty sure Sparksmith doesn't hit the face, right? Or at least we have that. It doesn't hit the face. Alright, Moderator. To sacrifice with that on the stack, they Sparksmith, so they don't have to take as much damage. That's kind of a cool trick. We take 6 damage down to 2, or we take the full 8 if they decide to sacrifice the Summoning Sick and the tapped creature. And unfortunately, all these islands are not going to be good enough, so we will concede game 1. So luckily, we have Hydroblast against them, which against the mono red deck is basically your choice of Counterspell or Vindicate at instant speed, which is pretty good. Against them, I want to speed up a little bit, so I'm going to get rid of my Gushes, 1 Spire Golem, and Bone Splitter. Bone Splitter, you would think you might not want to get rid of it when you're speeding up, but any of our creatures in the air die to their burn spells, except for maybe Spire Golem. So the Bone Splitter doesn't really do anything in combat. Either their ground creature, either we're having to block their ground creatures and Bone Splitter doesn't help us, or we're attacking and we'd rather have actual creatures than a Bone Splitter. And I think I'll submit that. We get to be on the play this time. Alright, we have double Fairy Miscreant, so as long as the first one doesn't add to a burn spell, that's nice. Then we have Preordained to find another threat, or maybe a Hydroblast. This is not a great hand, but it has a potential. Death Spark. Ooh, so at the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard with a creature card directly above it, you can pay 1 and return Death Spark to your hand. Which, as you can see, was just good against us just now. So I think I'm going to play Miscreant and play Passive Force Spike up. Mog Conscripts. I will counter that. It does put a creature card directly above their Death Spark, which is obviously awkward. Maybe I can return this Fairy Miscreant with a Ninja if I'm lucky. They miss their land drop, so I can play Spire Golem here for the full value, but I think finding a Ninja is so good here. Also, I'm not sure actually my opponent wants to return Death Spark, because it makes them take their whole turn right now unless they draw a land. I think I'm going to Preordain and try to resolve another creature or something. Counterspell, okay. And Ninja. I'll take both of those. Ninjutsu, boom, draw a card, and hopefully they don't have like a Bolt or a Chain Lightning as well. Alright, there's the Bolt. They miss a land drop again, so we'll play Golem, and we will hold up and Counterspell instead of playing Miscreant, I believe. I don't really want to just trade that with the Death Spark if they happen to draw a land this turn. I'm going to go ahead and always yield to that. Our opponent did choose to return it that turn, interestingly, because now they're going to have to discard a hand size anyway. Mog War Marshal. Alright. Drew another Ninja, which is obviously great, because now I get to ninjutsu it in replay Spire Golem for 1, and hold open Counterspell, which should be good enough. Makes the Death Spark in their hand not do anything. Pyroblast. Definitely going to counter that. And opponent misses another land drop. I suppose I should have pondered first, because if I find a ninja, I would have wanted to put it into play for this Spire Golem. That was a problem. But now I get to see what I draw first before I ponder, so... Hydroblast, Fairy Miscreant, Vapor Snag. Okay, so these cards are absolutely great. Fairy, draw Hydroblast, and now I have Hydroblast, Counterspell up, Vapor Snag on top of my library, 6 power in play against an opponent with 12 life, and 1 land on turn 6. And I think they call this unbeatable. They can even Death Spark me and it still doesn't matter. They want to bolt that? Sure, I'll counter it. Alright, so we had a bonkers draw and our opponent could not find land, so we won. So the problem with boarding Fairy Miscreant or Spellstutter Sprite out for Death Spark, or something similar like that that other decks might bring in, 1 power or 1 damage worth of things, is that if you take out Spellstutter Sprite, it makes your other Spellstutter Sprites worse. And if you take out Fairy Miscreants, it makes your other Fairy Miscreants worse and your Spellstutter Sprites worse. So they kind of only work as a package deal. There might be matchups where you want to board out 1 or 2 Spellstutters, but I don't think that's the case. Spire Golem is better against Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and Death Spark. But Spellstutter just counters so much of their deck because it's so cheap. So much it just costs 1. And with 1 other fairy in play, then so much it just costs 2. I guess on the draw, since they're land light and have 1 toughness hate, I can bring back in my Spire Golem for a Force Spike. I think the Force Spike is fine against them since they're so land light, but this is a little bit more consistent maybe, so I'll try this. Our opponent gets to be on the play, which is obviously a huge deal. We have double Miscreant and a Ninja, and a Force Spike and a Vapor. This is a pretty good combination of cards. See if they start off with the 2-2. Okay, Foundry. I think in general the 2-2s are a little bit scarier than the Foundry Street Denizen is. I'm going to play Miscreant, just in case they decide to tap out and let us get a Ninja in. I could also hold up in Force Spike since it gets better as the game goes longer, but... They resolve a Sparksmith, which is obviously bad. I don't think I want to trade with this for this fairy. Yeah, I think that's a bad idea. So I will lead off with a Vapor Snag. And then even if our opponent goes land Sparksmith and we can't Force Spike it, then we can Vapor Snag it again on their end step and try to Spell Stutter it or Force Spike it the next time around. Alright, there's the Sparksmith. And a Mog Raider. So do I want to Force Spike this or do I want to Vapor Snag the Sparksmith? I suppose I should Force Spike it. It's pretty annoying to have to deal with. So here, if I Vapor Snag the Sparksmith, I don't actually have enough mana to Spell Stutter because I haven't drawn lands. The dream would be to attack with Ninja, to attack Ninjutsu, draw a land, play a land, and then they Sparksmith before playing a creature. And then I Vapor Snag their Foundry Street Denizen in response, and the Sparksmith doesn't work. But that only deals with 1 turn of Sparksmith activations. I suppose I need to ponder and look for a Hydroblast. So are these cards good enough to keep? I can go Island, Delver's Secrets, and then Spellstutter Sprite in that order. Draw the island, play the Fairy Miscreant, draw the Delver, play the Delver. Attack for 1 down to 17. They Sparksmith my Delver and attack me. I untap. I Vapor Snag the Sparksmith, and then I can Spellstutter on the way back down. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Obviously, I really want to draw Hydroblast, but I can't just shuffle and hope it's the first card on top. Seems a little bit greedy. I could also not play Delver and Vapor Snag the Fairy that they end up targeting, but I don't really like that either. Okay. It's going to plan so far. I just need to have 2 Spellstutters still around whenever they eventually Sparksmith again. Or cast the Sparksmith again after I Vapor Snag it. Bushwhacker is kicked. Which means they're coming over for a bunch of damage. And I may be forced to trade off with the Fairy. They also have a land. So they're attacking me for 8. If I block here, they can sacrifice one of these creatures, or any creature, to regenerate it. Not regenerate it, but they can give it +1/+1, so effectively regenerate. I'll still have 2 fairies for being able to untap Vapor Snag, Sparksmith, and Spellstutter on the way back down. This makes the Goblin Slitter worse in the future. I think I have to block. Our opponent does sacrifice the Bushwhacker to keep the Foundry Street alive and deal 1 less damage. Alright. I'm going to Vapor Snag this. I could ninjutsu, but I don't think I'm winning that race, so I think I need to try to counter. They play a land, so they have 2 cards in hand, one of which is the... Alright, perfect. So they can't kill one of my fairies in response, which is the main question that I had. Alright. We may be able to do this. Brace yourselves. Alright, 14 to 14. We have 2 cards in hand to their none. We have less lands and a little bit worse board presence. What do I want to do here? I think that 2 fairies is enough to have. So I'm going to trade off the Fairy Miscreant and plan on picking up the Spellstutter to ninjutsu next turn. They sacrifice a Slutter to keep the Foundry around. Ooh, Hydroblast. That was obviously a great draw. So I'm going to attack, I'm going to ninjutsu, and then I'm going to draw a whole bunch of cards, and I'm going to stop whatever our opponent does next. And hopefully that'll be good enough. Counterspell, okay. So now we're winning the damage race. We have a Hydroblast in hand. I can Hydroblast on their end step, but if they have a Bolt to kill my Ninja in response, it's really bad for me, so I think I'm not going to do that. Preordain, okay, I'm just going to leave open Counterspell plus Spellstutter. And here I'm going to play a Spellstutter for no value, just to block. And we win the match. All right, excellent. Well, we went 4-1 overall, with our only loss being to a very, very new deck in the meta. I had a lot of fun playing this deck. Ninja the Devours is a very fun card to put into play and just keep on getting value off of. And Spellstutter Sprite is still, even without Cloud of Fairies, a great card for getting ahead and staying ahead and keeping your opponent off balance. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe to the MTG Goldfish YouTube channel. If you want to reach out to me, you can leave a comment on the videos or the associated article for this week on the site. And lastly, if you want to submit deck ideas, check out the Match 1 video for the email and Twitter links. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.